Good morning. Just hanging out here this morning in my, processing room. I'm doing some dehydrating and going to be doing some other kitchen stuff today. It's me and my cup of tea. I want to tell you what happened a few weeks ago and some thoughts I have on the process and feeding people and all that sort of stuff. So as you know, probably about 3.5 weeks ago up here in Northern California, we had some spectacular lightning events and storm and a little bit of rain and wind, and it's the sort of thing that although it's pretty common on the East Coast, it's not that common out here. So of course everyone was excited and beautiful and photographing it and videoing it. It was really very spectacular. But about a day and a half later, I got an urgent phone call from my cousin telling me he needed my help. And so I said, of course. And an hour later, he and his wife were at my house with one suitcase and both their cars. And those lightning strikes had started just a series of fires up and down California. Just terrible fires. They just had smoldered and I guess finally exploded. And he, like I, live in a rural area, and he lives about 30 minutes from me. So I was his first. We'd already decided we would evacuate at each other's homes if it ever came to that. So of course I was more than happy to have them. And when he arrived, he told me that he wasn't sure they were going to have a house to go back to. So my heart was broken. But we took him in, and no problem there. I have plenty of room. The only real issue I had, and I had to come to terms with, was due to the fact we'd had this coronavirus thing for so many months, and Eddie and I had been isolated up here and really hadn't gone anywhere or had anyone over. I didn't know what to feed anybody. I mean, Eddie kind of eats his food and I eat my food, and my poor cousins had just fled their home, and I couldn't really offer him a bowl of popcorn and say, here's dinner, which is like kind of my dinner more evenings than not, or, a piece of toast or something. So I really had to think about how was I going to feed people? And they ended up staying with us for 2 weeks. So it wasn't just one night. It was like, how do we do this on an ongoing basis? Well, the first night we had sandwich fixings. I had gotten the call when I was at work, so I left work a little early and I went to the grocery store and made sure we had bread and deli items because I didn't have time to cook or do anything. And the next night I got some frozen pizzas, excuse me, at the local grocery store. But that was adding up fast. We have a great little grocery store, and it has great produce, but for like large scale stuff, it can get pretty expensive pretty quick. So I ended up thinking this through, and this was turning into more than just a 1 or 2 day thing. So I thought, I should have some food in the freezer and stuff ready to go, not just for this, but for any sort of unexpected guest or emergency when suddenly you're kind of knocked out of your comfort zone and have to take care of a bunch of people real fast. So they ended up staying with us for 2 weeks, and it worked out fine. But what I did was Eddie and I went to Grocery Outlet one afternoon, and I ended up getting stuff like, I got more frozen pizzas, I got lasagnas, I got meatballs for spaghetti and meatballs, I got some of those chicken tenders that I thought you can put in the oven and serve with rice or barbecue sauce or salad or whatever. We got some things to actually barbecue with, some preformed hamburgers and sausages, and I got some Cornish game hens. I'm also a little limited here that I have the toaster oven to cook in and not an oven, so we had to get things that would fit in the toaster oven and feed 4 people reliably for dinner every evening. My cousins were also totally awesome and went way overboard in trying to make it up to us, though they didn't have to. They didn't have to make anything up to us, but they also went and got rotisserie chicken and took us out for Chinese food one night and got some pre-made, I don't know. They went several times and brought things in to help with the food situation, which was really nice. And as I said, it was really nice, but I would have happily 2 weeks covered all that for them, but it was very nice and it was helpful. So I've really started thinking about cooking for more than 1 or 2 people again, and to have some sort of backup plan for unexpected guests and unexpected crises. Everything I bought was pretty much for the freezer, so I could just pull it out of the freezer and pop it in the toaster oven and have a meal. But it really kind of caught me flat-footed. Just was not used to having people over, and just wasn't used to any of it. You kind of, when you're living with another person or you're just cooking for yourself or 2 people, you kind of end up doing the same simple, easy things every day, and sometimes at the last minute something happens and you realize you just can't do that. You need to have a backup plan. I was happy with how things turned out in the end. We were able to have dinners, and I had some frozen waffles and made some potato pancakes, and we had eggs and toast and stuff for breakfast, and I made sure there were sandwich fixings for lunch, and they, kind of made it work. But it's really made me rethink my pantry, and especially the freezer, and I'm going to be having more meals in there, for like lasagnas, and I still have a pizza in there, and just I'm going to have more of those sort of things always on rotation in the freezer, just for these sorts of emergencies. The 2 weeks they spent here was really great. After the whole COVID thing, it was really nice to have people here, and they're so sweet. Their house ended up being saved, and our house was okay. Right, I live near a highway, and across the highway there's a sort of an area of pasture, and then there's a mountain, or I guess a mountain or a hill. I don't know what the difference, I guess a hill, mountain, a mountain, hill, I'm not sure. But one of the largest wildfires in California history, right now it's the 4th largest, was right over on the other side of that hill. It was about a 1.5 miles from my house. So we were on evacuation warning from about the day 2 of this whole thing. So when my cousins came, by the next evening we were on evacuation warning, which broke my heart. I didn't want to have to tell them they had to start thinking about leaving, but we did pack everything up, and I had all my clothes in the car, and I literally have lived out of my car for the next 2 weeks. I went to the laundromat, came back, put it in the car. This is the second time I've had to do this in 2 years. Fortunately, have not had to actually evacuate. But by the last 5 days or so, the hardest part of the fire to fight was the part that was about 1.5 miles from the house, on the other side of that mountain ridge. For some reason, it got its like tentacles into the mountain there and would not let go. And it was along the road that my cousins needed to get back home. So that whole area was also evacuated, and there was just smoke. And if you went higher on our little mountain road, you could see the red of the flames. And one night there was 12 passes of the Cal Fire going overhead with helicopters. It was 12 patches of the planes themselves, plus helicopters going back and forth, trying to put this out with either water or fire retardant. And this was every night. It wasn't 12 passes every night, but there was at least multiple passes every evening for about 4 or 5 evenings, and we would just sit on the porch and just watch it. At the end of the 2 weeks, they got the go-ahead to go home, and we got released from our evacuation warning. And although life has gone back somewhat to normal for us, other parts of the state have now caught on fire. And in addition to us having lots and lots of smoke, to the point where yesterday it was like dusk all day, it's also very heartbreaking to see people lose their lives, lose their homes, lose their livelihoods. And so I'd like to send up a little prayer to them, and also a prayer and a huge thank you to all our local law enforcement and the law enforcement that came from other places, and of course to Cal Fire and all the firefighting crew that kept us safe during this catastrophe, and they're now working really hard to keep others safe in this state. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and again, blessings to all those who are affected, and to all those who help keep us safe.